Welcome back. Well, the migrant crime crisis continues. Immigration officials in Boston have arrested a Chinese migrant who was charged with sex crimes, including 3 counts of indecent assault and battery on a person above 14 years old. ICE Boston also arresting a Brazilian migrant charged with attempted murder, stalking, and kidnapping. He was caught and released at the Arizona border in September of 2021. And then in New York, an 11-year-old Venezuelan migrant arrested for mugging a woman in the subway. The child, 11-year-old, also linked to a group of young people who are allegedly behind a string of Central Park robberies. In the Bronx, a Senegalese national who illegally crossed the Arizona border last year has been charged with raping a woman in the Bronx. And then there's Coney Island, another illegal migrant arrested for raping a woman at knife point earlier this month. Joining me now is New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and serves as the Republican Conference Assistant Whip. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I know that you've been trying to get the city to turn over the true statistics for all of this migrant crime. Have you heard back?
Well, look, we've since last October been trying to get this data. We put in a FOIL request after they ignored my initial letter in January, and they have pushed it now twice, and now they want to postpone it until after the election conveniently, when people deserve to know, the taxpayers deserve to know how many migrants in this city that we are being forced to pay for, to house, to feed, to provide all sorts of legal services and laundry services, are committing crimes. We know it's in the thousands because that was the last number we were able to obtain last year. But the reality is there have been thousands of arrests, thousands more since then, and the city will not release this data. So we have to hear about it in the news for the few news outlets that actually cover it. It's outrageous. They just caught somebody with 32 murders in his home country of Peru, and he was here in New York. And these people, all of the ones you've mentioned, these people were actually directed, the administration directed CBP to release them into the interior. They were caught at the border, but they were forced to release them. And it's because of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. We've passed legislation to fix this. Chuck Schumer won't allow it to pass. And anyone who votes Democrat this year has to understand that they are condoning this. They are allowing this to continue, and it will get worse under Kamala Harris.
There's 23 mothers, right? 23 mothers. Jonathan, weigh in here, because all the time Democrats come out and say crime is down. Well, I want to get your take on what the answer to that is. When Democrats say, no, what are you talking about? Crime is down.
Well, I think they're wrong. I mean, it's slightly down from the peaks of 2022 and 2023, but certainly it's higher than during the Trump administration. And I think, Congresswoman, your point is so good on the cost of the illegal immigration, because it rarely gets discussed, but the taxpayers are paying additional money for not only, housing and things like that, but schools are quite expensive. For every student is probably $20K per student. Healthcare, which you can't just create new healthcare even with new money. You can't just print doctors and print hospitals. So all of these have a major quality of life harm to the citizens of New York and citizens of this country. And I'm glad that you're bringing that to the attention of the American people, because those are the sort of the unknown or unspoken costs of illegal immigration. And the crime issue, they'll never tell you. They always say migrant crime is lower, but you're not allowed to ask if somebody's an illegal alien, so how do you really know the true number?
Yeah, so the spending here in New York City alone has been $5 billion. So think about this. People are in our city wreaking havoc, and we are actually paying for them to be here and live here free, while Americans are struggling, right? How many Americans are talking about not being able to put food on the table or to pay their rent, and they can't pay their medical expenses or their medical drugs, but yet these people who are here illegally are getting all these things for free.
Why?
It is so unfair. And is a slap in the face, but that is the principle of the Democratic Party. That's the reality. They want open borders.
I don't understand. Why? Why would the stewards of America, the greatest nation in the world, want wide open borders and want people to be coming into this country half the time we don't even know their intentions and motivations? Why?
Well, clearly they're deranged. I mean, their views of the world are lopsided, and I think that's what we've been trying to push, is just simple common sense. We want border security. We want America to be affordable, prosperous, our streets to be be safe. That is the platform of President Trump and the Republicans. If you want more chaos, more lawlessness, more open borders, people who are coming in, again, murders, gang members, drug dealers, and we've done everything we can in the House, passing multiple pieces of legislation. Some actually got some bipartisan support. Chuck Schumer has stopped every single one in the Senate.
Including the SAVE Act.
Yeah, and by the way, cops in New York, we're now at the lowest level since 1990. So while they were talking about defund the police in 2020, they may not be saying those words anymore, but it's the same theme. They are driving these cops out with retirements. About 200 are leaving a month, and now we're down 2,000 cops since the defund the police movement. So they're still pushing the same policies. They're just trying to rephrase it to sell it to the American people.
Adam.
Maria asked a very specific question. Why would Democrats allow this to happen? I have a theory that Democrats want the votes of these migrants.
Yeah.
What's
Me
your
too.
take? Yeah.
I have the same theory.
Thank you. Is it? I mean, is this? Can you answer that?
Well, first of all, I had to sue to stop non-citizen voting here in New York City. We won once, we won again in the appellate, and now we're in the Court of Appeals because the city keeps appealing it. They want to insist on non-citizens voting. I also did a FOIL request of a migrant shelter contract, and guess what I found? It directs the agencies to register people who are in any shelter in New York City, whether it's homeless or migrant, to vote. And so, yes, there is a clear attempt for them to do this. Thankfully, we've been able to stop it so far with our lawsuit, but I wouldn't be surprised if people are going to be casting their vote illegally, because how can you tell if you're directing these agencies to register, and then on another page of the contract you're saying they can't ask about their citizenship status? Well, gee, there's a problem with that. So there's certainly a lot of wrong things that the Democrats are trying to do here, and it's clear with these policies.
There was a recent study that estimated 10 to 27% of non-citizens are right now registered to vote illegally. Do you have any evidence that you can share with us that tells us that illegals are registered to vote?
Well, I think it's very hard to actually find it because we don't have access to what the Board of Elections is receiving. But I will say this, when you apply for a driver's license in New York and you're here illegally, it's up to you to check off that box and say that you're not a citizen, or else they will send your paperwork automatically to the Board of Elections. And so there is a real question there on how they are screening these individuals to ensure that they are citizens. And like I said, the migrant contracts themselves for the shelters clearly state that they have to go in there and register people to vote and provide materials, by the way, for the elections, while on the same other page saying they cannot ask citizenship status. So there's a clear push here. We're doing our best to stop it. As you know, we're in court right now in New York State.
And you think you'll be able to stop it? I mean, you've got 76 days before the election.
No, so
How many
far,
people will be voting illegally?
Yeah, well, so far we
November
have
5th?
stopped non-citizens from being allowed to register to vote. Remember, they wanted after just 30 days of living in New York City. We've stopped that. Now, there's people that snuck in. I do think that there's people that snuck in and are registered, and we have to do our best to try to clean the rolls. And they do have attorneys, they do have poll watchers, and we have to do our best there. But unfortunately, this is the problem, is that the Democrats do not cooperate with any of this. And so it raises a lot of question. If they want people to have faith in our elections, they can't be doing things like this. We actually passed a law in Washington, or bill, that said they have to actually have identification to register to vote. And guess what? They didn't want any proof of citizenship status. Every single Democrat, except for just a handful, voted against it.
But the New York Times just reported last week that the naturalization process is now been speeded up, and they're making people citizens as fast as possible right now.
Well, those are the people who paid the drug cartels to come here. They're getting first dibs in court. The people who have came the right way, did everything right, paid thousands in attorneys, have been waiting in line for years, they're getting pushed further down the line.
Yeah.
That sounds very anti-immigrant to me.
So one thing that scares me, can we roll that Obama bite, Caroline? One thing that really scares me is who's running the country right now. Okay, so you've got Kamala Harris campaigning, and obviously the DNC underway. You've got Joe Biden vacationing in California. He's upset that they pushed him out. And so Obama gave us a little hint of this on his way out, didn't he, in 2020? Watch his last interview with Stephen Colbert. Watch this.
People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Oh, he'd be fine with that. Nicole Malliotakis, is that what's been going on these last? Now we know Joe Biden was a lot sicker than anybody admitted.
Regardless of which one of them is actually running the country, they're doing an awful job, and that is why we have to elect a Republican Senate, House, and President in November if we want to see this reversed, because we have a wide open border allowing dangerous people. We have an economy that is hurting. The tax cuts all set to expire next year. That is a big one. That is going to hurt the economy if these guys are in control. They're going to raise taxes on everybody, especially the working and middle class. So I think that people have to recognize and see.
Very
what they
telling.
want.
Very telling, Obama. I bet he regrets saying that, and now we have that on tape. Good to see you, Congresswoman. Thank you. Nicole Malliotakis. We'll be right back.